Hello everyone, I'm Padmini Arhant, author and presenter padminiarhant.com as well as prakriti.padminiarhant.com. I represent the divine mission in the name of Almighty God, whom I represent in spirit, soul, and flesh. I present my thoughts on North Korea peace talks. Before I proceed, I would like to confirm that I'm not reading from a teleprompter scripted message. There is no ventriloquist or clairvoyance assisting me in any manner. This presentation is entirely extemporaneous, impromptu, nonetheless based on facts and reality. I would like to focus on North Korea in my in this segment. I would like to begin with North Korea's uh, statement issued on Friday, the past Friday. North Korean state media confirmed North Korean leader Kim Jong un's decision to suspend nuclear testing, underground and overland, including medium range missiles and intercontinental ballistic missiles. Additionally, the state media also reported that the nuclear facility site will also be shut down. The news has been received positively by neighbors, understandably, that is South Korea, Japan, and that goes for China as well. United States, on its part, has welcomed the decision by North Korea. Um, the summits that are scheduled to take place in the coming week between North Korea and South Korea, and later, I believe sometime early May or in June, there is a summit expected to take place with the direct meeting between North Korean leader Kim Jong un and United States President Donald Trump. Now, let us focus on uh, North Korea crisis. In order to understand any problems, I firmly believe that one has to understand the cause behind that problem. That is, there is always something that causes um, anything to happen. Nothing happens without a reason or without something causing that incident or event to take place. In North Korea's case, um, I would like to uh, review North Korean emergence, North Korean state evolving into a nuclear state as it is now, what contributed to that status, what were the problems, why it happened, and who were all responsible, and what prompted North Korea to go nuclear in the first place. So these are all the issues that ought to be understood when we focus on North Korea at this point in time. So let us begin with North Korean crisis. Post Korean warfare, the war ended, but then there was no peace treaty or agreement. There was only an armistice, which is an open end situation, allowing any side to engage in military intervention or military action, which is exactly what happened. Um, since there was no peace accord that was signed post Korean warfare. Uh, the militarization of Korean Peninsula has been the bone of contention for North Korea, and North Korea's nuclear testing has been the case of objection for United States and their allies, South Korea and Japan. So now we need to understand, who started what and when, and why each side have been blaming each other. As I just explained, North Korea evolving into a nuclear state, um, that was something perhaps not even predicted back then. This is post Korean warfare. So, the Korean warfare resulting in armistice rather than a permanent peace accord led to United States occupation of the Korean Peninsula um, under the pretext of um, providing security to their ally, South Korea. So this is something that has been the uh, problem, and United States providing military support um, via deployment of US troops, that is, establishment of US base in South Korea, and that goes for Japan as well. And as a matter of fact, the Asia Pacific region is militarized with the US military and naval deployment in that region. North Korea became a communist nation post Korean War, and that led to United Nations and United States, United Nations Security Council and United States imposing economic sanctions for North Korea's human rights, citing North Korea's human rights record. Besides North Korea being a communist nation, and um, this is where I feel, there is this gross uh, um, misunderstanding, or there appears to be a dismissal of the human rights violations from the members of the UN Security Council. In the first place, UN Security Council imposing economic sanctions in itself has been a human rights violations. The economic sanctions has been extremely harsh and proved painful and miserable for the population who have been subject to economic sanctions. And this is not just with North Korea, any nation that has been targeted with economic sanctions, the population of those nations have suffered enormously with the uh, denial of basic requirements that are so desperately needed for survival, whether it be food supplies, medications, and anything to do with critical medical treatments, and that goes for any other products and services that are needed for normal existence. So this is what economic sanctions does to a population who are subject to economic sanctions. So this is precisely what happened with North Korea. North Korea was subject to economic sanctions by United Nations Security Council, and United States on its part conducting these relentless military activities in North Korean territory, that is North Korean border, along with South Korea, has been the predominant factor for North Korea to explore nuclear option. And the nuclear option itself, as I said, would not have been a consideration had there not been nuclear threats by United States, which has been frivolously and casually used by not only the administrations, whether Democrat or Republican, but also the presidential candidates during the presidential campaigns. Invariably, they use they issue statements, public statements, um, uh, and I quote them, that all options are on the table, which means that the nuclear option is not ruled out by them. So that in itself is enough to prompt any nation that are targeted, to whom these warnings are issued, to explore the nuclear option for their own safety and security, more so as a deterrent factor than be defiant, as these states have repeatedly stated in their defense, whether it be North Korea or Iran. For they have been issued with nuclear threats and nuclear warnings by United States. And now, when we focus on North Korea, I would like to say that North Korea is human right violation on the part of members at the UN Security Council when they cite these nations, whether North Korea or any other nation, their human rights record as the reason for them to impose economic sanctions against them. They fail to recognize their own, you know, um, um, violation, human rights violation in doing so. That is in enforcing the trade embargo against the people of these nations. As I just described, how excruciating it is for the people of these nations when they are deprived of essentials that are so badly needed for their daily survival. And this is what is targeted in order to make the governments of these nations submit to the members of the UN Security Council, or for that matter, the powers who aim these nations for their various demands. So they want them to oblige their demands, and if they find any resistance, their immediate option is or action is to impose economic sanction against those nations. That has been the trajectory, the trend among these powers. Now, I would like to also focus on yeah, the expectation of denuclearization by United States from North Korea in the upcoming summit. The new denuclearization would be a viable option, provided all states, including United States, that in fact I would begin with United States. I would say that United States should be the leading member in denuclearization, renouncing nuclear status, disposal of nuclear arsenal, considering the stockpiles United States and their allies at the UN Security Council, Britain, France, Russia, China, and that goes for other nuclear states, India, Pakistan, and Israel, and so on. So every one of them to come on board, they have to come aboard and renounce their nuclear status. only then denuclearization would be viable and could guarantee positive outcome. Denuclearization of any particular nation, in this case, North Korea alone, is not going to guarantee peace and security to the world. I can assure you in that regard. For anyone in possession of nuclear weapons, they pose a threat to humanity at large. That is something that cannot be underestimated in any sense. Anyone in nuclear possession of nuclear weapons and capability, beginning with United States having proved with United States using nuclear weapon in the past century, 20th century, against Japan in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and as I said, the continuous use of nuclear arsenal, that is issuing nuclear warnings and threats by United States presidency and the presidential candidates in all the presidential campaigns. All of that has been responsible. Has led to these other nations seeking nuclear status, going nuclear, for their own safety and security. So now, when we discuss about disarming North Korea, while United States and the rest enhancing their nuclear status is in a way, I would say, is double standards. It is a hypocrisy when those who are raising the red flag or waving the red flag, and they're alarmed about any other states, whether it be North Korea or others, in becoming or having become a nuclear state, and so accordingly they expect them to be denuclearized, while they are not even considering to pursue that course or that path themselves for themselves is nothing more than the contradictory position that they voluntarily choose, and then not to mention that the lack of credibility when they do that. So when you're expecting someone else to do something that you think is necessary to in terms of global peace and security, I would say that it should apply to every one of them across the board, and without exception. And this is something that cannot be treated with any distinctions in terms of superiority, or and they have this other classification, such as responsible versus reckless. I've never been able to understand that concept at all, considering those who claim themselves to be responsible are the ones who have proved to be reckless. When you go and verify the record, that is what is evident. They have clarified or declared themselves to be responsible, even though their legacy and the track record speaks otherwise. So for them to call out anyone and say that they are reckless, and so they have to be disarmed, while they continue to proliferate their status, the nuclear status, with them. Again, as I said, not only having used the nuclear arsenal on their part against another sovereign nation, but also they continue to threaten other states with nuclear warnings. So, not to mention the use of missiles, nuclear laden airstrikes, that has been the norm as well. That has happened in Syrian conflict, that has happened in Iraq. The nuclear laden or the depleted uranium was used during Iraq war, in the illegal invasion and occupation of Iraq. So this has been the trend among the nuclear powers, that is somehow not acknowledged by them. And so for them to expect others to to disarm and to dismantle their nuclear position, is going to be something that I guess will not be sustainable, even if they think they would be able to do it. For as I said, they continue to remain the threat. As long as they are the threat and they remain the threat, having been the source for the rest of them to go nuclear, they have been the reason for the rest of them to go nuclear. And then they continue to maintain and retain their nuclear status while expecting others to disarm is definitely a tall order. I think it would not even be meaningful. In order to be meaningful, they need to set an example. That is what is required, and this is something that that needs to be recognized by them, and in order to have a fair discussion, they have to be on the same page, and they have to make sure that they are in compliance of everything that they expect from others. And again, I would like to emphasize the economic sanctions aspect of it, which I am fairly certain is expected by the people of North Korea, that they deserve a permanent relief from these excruciating economic sanctions. The economic sanctions has been completely it's been unnecessary. It's biased. It is partisanship. As I said, when anyone citing the human rights record, human rights violation, they need to focus on their own human rights record as well. That reflects their track record, and then there is also the human rights, economic sanctions are considered the potent weapon by members of the UN Security Council to make any governments they do not agree with, or they do not respect or accept for different reasons, political system and economy, and then usually they cite human rights abuse. Like as I said, I don't think any nation in this world, on this planet, can possibly claim that they do not have any human rights violation in their country. Every nation in somehow or another, or engaged in some kind of human rights violations towards some segment of the population in their society. This is something that needs to be recognized by states for better understanding. I don't think the human rights violation is unique to any particular state or society. Human rights violation is pervasive. It is it persists worldwide. in every state, every country, some or other, ethnic group or tribe segment, people belonging to any particular faith, demography, they are, subject to discrimination and human rights violations. So, when human rights violations are repeatedly, routinely cited as a reason by the members of the UN Security Council for to impose sanctions on any country, I would say, that does not really bode well, considering their own history, legacy, and contemporary uh, activities related to human rights and freedom as well. Let us not forget individual freedom, political rights. It's all not really granted to all in society. There are always some segments who are isolated, or who experience discrimination in some form or another. North Korea, now preparing for the upcoming summit, with the recent decision to suspend their nuclear testing and activities, is indeed a smart strategy, I would say, for that promotes positive vibes for parties who are going to be participating in the forthcoming summits. And at the same time, North Korea, having now become a nuclear state, is something that obviously has to be accepted as such, that they are a nuclear power. But with the denuclearization, as I said, denuclearization of all states is essential, not just one or the other. Denuclearization of all nuclear nations, nuclear powers, is what required from now on, and that cannot be discounted, that cannot be dismissed. There is no such thing as responsible versus reckless. When you are in possession of nuclear weapons, you do pose a threat to anyone, your neighbor, anybody in the region, or anyone across the world. So the humanity at large is, they are extremely vulnerable to any states in possession of nuclear weapons. Accordingly, the denuclearization policy must apply across the board to all nuclear powers without exception. Only then denuclearization is meaningful. Only then denuclearization would guarantee global peace and security. United States in this regard, leading the denuclearization process, would be necessary and commendable. For that would improve United States credibility, as well as commitment to peaceful endeavors and denuclearization of the world. I am really hopeful that the summits would deliver a positive outcome, given the peaceful overtures from North Korea to their neighbors South, and South responding accordingly. And I guess it all happened with the South Korea Olympics, hosting Winter Olympics in their state, and North Korean athletes' participation in the Olympic event was a breakthrough in their relationship, and that also thawed the otherwise frozen ties between North and South, with the past administration in South Korea, especially not having been successful in improving the relations with North, that is North Korea. And now with the current presidency, the administration represented by South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korea on its part with the leader Kim Jong-un expressing desire and moving forward with positive developments is all indicative of progressiveness, and that needs to be maintained. I think gaining momentum on this is absolutely critical, so that the decades old crisis in the Korean Peninsula can be resolved once and for all. And the peace summit between North and South focused on transforming the existing armistice into permanent peace accord will definitely be a significant achievement, and that in itself would make way for economic ties and relations, trade relations between North and South, which is so important and beneficial for both North and South Korea. And that goes for United States as well. United States peaceful approach and understanding of North Korea's situation and lifting the economic sanctions against the people of North Korea would be extremely important, productive, and critical to make the summit a success. I remain hopeful and optimistic, and I look forward to the peaceful outcome from these summits, both between North Korea and South Korea, and the one expected to be held between North Korea and United States. I extend my best wishes again. I will be talking about the other topic that I mentioned in my statement earlier on, UNSC dissolution. That is something that will be discussed and presented to you all shortly. And prior to that UNSC topic, I will be presenting on environment in observation of Earth Day. I would like to take leave now, and I wish all sides good luck in achieving a peace, and this is a long-lasting peace in Korean Peninsula that would definitely offer growth and development that is so badly required, especially for the people of North Korea. So I wish them well. I wish them good luck in their endeavors. I am Padmini Arhant, author and presenter, padminiarhant.com, as well as prakriti.padminiarhant.com. Representative, spouse in divine mission, representing Almighty God in spirit, soul, and flesh. I seek peace and progress for humanity. Thank you.